What's going on, everybody? Essential from above, aka Madman. Today we're going to talk about Godzilla -1. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I gave this movie straight up a 9, like a 9 out of 10 or a 9.25. Just an overall fantastic movie. I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it, please see it. It is entirely in Japanese, but I promise that does not take away from how good this movie is. Only reason it didn't get a 10 is because obviously no movie's a perfect 10. Not in my eyes, at least. So I gave you the rating. We're going to go into a little bit of the plot. Minor spoilers for the plot. The main character, which this Godzilla movie does a fantastic job on focusing on the characters and not as much on Godzilla. I guess they figure everybody knows who Godzilla is, so it's all good. But these characters are fantastic. And it really, like, you start to feel things for these characters because you're like, oh, man, that happened. Oh, that sucks. All that stuff. Anyway, great movie overall. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go watch it, come back to the review, because there is going to be minor spoilers, and then there's going to be major spoilers. I don't want to screw anybody on the opportunity to really enjoy this movie. So with the budget that they had, it's a $15 million budget. Is that what it says? $15 million budget? Oh my God. And it's better than most of the movies that you would see today, and that have like upwards to $1 billion for a budget. You know what I'm saying? It's so good. Anywho, let's get into it. So around 1945, it was at the end of the World War. You got our main protagonist, Koichi Shikishima. He is a kamikaze pilot for the Japanese during the end of World War II. He does not want to do his duty and die for his country. So he goes over to Odo Island because he says there's something wrong with his plane. That night, they start seeing fish wash up, and Godzilla comes out, attacks everybody. They tell him, hey, get on your cannon, shoot him from his plane. He freezes up, can't shoot him, and then gets knocked unconscious. And he's like, him and one of the mechanics are the only two survivors, right? So then it fast forwards to him going home, finds out that all of his family and friends pretty much are dead, other than his next door neighbor. They're all dead from the air raids that happened in that area. He meets a girl whose parents also died from the air raids, and she has a baby with her who's not related to her. Named Akiko, who she was asked by the parents to take the baby and take care of the baby. So she brings the baby and meets him in like a super, like the super corniest way. She's running because she steals some food or something, and she just hands him the baby and like runs off. And he doesn't know what to do. So, of course, he just puts the baby down. And he's like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this thing? Then he picks it back up and starts bringing it back to his house. When she comes back, Noriko comes back for the baby. And she's like, hey, I'm going to come live with you. And he's like, no, you're not. You're not coming with me. Well, she ends up staying because she has nowhere to go. And she's got the baby on her. So he goes to work as a minesweeper. And she's like, they're kind of creating a relationship, this bond, and the movie does a really good job in portraying that bond to you. It's like you could tell he's really conflicted with himself, and he wants to start a relationship with her and the kid, but he doesn't want to like commit to the kid and the woman because obviously like he's still dealing with, he sees Godzilla and all those guys that died from Godzilla back on Oda Island. Like every night he's having nightmares of it. Just because he's having this battle with himself, he doesn't want to take on the responsibility of anything else. And they do such a good job of trying to explain that to the audience. It's fantastic. Anyway, he starts to work as a minesweeper. She gets upset. He says it brings in good money, so they're able to save up and everything and give both of them a good future. So he goes out and basically finds mines that were left by the U.S. and Japan during World War II. That's basically his whole job. So in 1947, he has to go out for another mine sweeping event. The only difference is in this mine sweeping event, they don't understand why they're out there. Well, the Japanese government had sent them out there not actually for mines, but to stall the approaching creature. It's not then until you find out that this creature is Godzilla, and they want Godzilla to be stalled by these minesweeping crews. They do a little bit of damage to Godzilla, but you can see that they put a mine in his mouth and like shoot him. Mind you, I told you there's going to be spoilers, right? He regenerates so fast, and the CGI was fantastic at how quickly they like showed him regenerate his face. I was like, holy crap, he regenerated that fast. It was amazing. So then they get away. Godzilla unleashes a heat ray and destroys a heavy cruiser, which is like one of the big Japanese ships, because the Japanese ship finally makes its way out there and starts attacking Godzilla with them. He completely obliterates that ship, and then he goes, he passes out again, which is just something that this main protagonist does. He just passes out and then wakes up in random places. So he wakes up in the hospital. They find out Godzilla's going to be making landfall, coming to Ginza. Now, the important part to know is that Noriko, the woman that he met, finally got a job. And he was like, at that moment when she got a job, you could tell, like, he was like, oh no, do I not make enough money for you? Do I not take care of you? And you could tell, like, oh, he's conflicted. He doesn't want her to go out and live her own life. He wants her to have a life with him. And anyway, that's kind of a past story. But he's coming to Ginza where she works. And she doesn't know this. He makes landfall, starts destroying everything. He lets out his heat ray, which his heat ray in this movie is so freaking cool, dude. Like, all of his scales start popping up out of his body and turn blue. And then it's just this huge, boom, huge ray going off into the distance, into the mountains, obliterating everything. Not only is it just like a heat ray that like it's an extreme laser explosion, but it also creates like a shockwave experience around him, and it levels all the buildings in the area. So Noriko gets caught in the blast, and that's one of those moments where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe she's dead. That's crazy. Right? So they create this group that's like a party of just the civilians that are like, all right, we're going to take on Godzilla ourselves because the U.S. can't help us, because the U.S. is afraid of tensions caused with Japanese leaders and with the Soviet Union. Japan's government isn't going to help us because they're afraid of repercussions between the Soviets and the U.S. So everyone's kind of like in a ceasefire, and the civilians are like, it's up to us. So they have a scientist on their team. He's an awesome character. They call him Doc. Essentially, he comes up with this plan to sink Godzilla to the bottom of the ocean floor. And then if that doesn't work, raise him up and put him through all the pressure all over again. Explosive decompression is what the plan is. Essentially, to shove him as far down into the depths of water as they possibly can to where it decompresses him. And then if he lives, shoot him right back and make him go through all that pressure again. Which I thought was a fantastic idea. Just a great plan overall. Then, of course, our main protagonist is like, no, I'm not going to do that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to fulfill my duty as a kamikaze pilot, and I'm going to fly into his mouth and detonate an explosive device. And at this point in the movie, you've been with this guy for a hot minute, so you're like, bro, no, but he feels like that's the only way that he can do this. He's like, the only way that I can avenge all the guys that died on the island, the only way that I can avenge everyone that's died from Godzilla is to kill him myself the way that I was supposed to die before. And dude, just it's so good because his character starts to realize, like, that's what I have to do. That's what I have to do. So he needs to find the only guy that he trusts, which is Tachibana. It's the mechanic that survived back on Oda Island. And he's like, I need you to put a bomb on my airplane. They get him an airplane. He's like, I need you to put a bomb on this airplane. I'm going to kamikaze Godzilla, right? That was like the main thing. So at this point, you're like, dude, no, don't do it, bro. Like, we want you to be alive, especially because now Noriko's dead, and the only person that you can really like look out for is Akiko, which is the kid, right? The kid calls him daddy. She called the woman Noriko mommy because that's all she knows, and you're about to just, end it all, right? So anyway, I'm not trying to get to it because it was a really good movie, guys. They set up the bomb. They set up the plan. They get in there. They sink him, and then they lift him back up, and he lived. And everyone kind of knew that was going to happen. So our main protagonist ends up flying. Foomp. Okay, before I say this, Godzilla is about to unleash a heat ray that is going to kill everyone in the immediate vicinity, which is hundreds of people that from like the entirety of the movie. So our main protagonist just thinks of one thing. Shikishima, he thinks, what can I do except for my duty, right? So he flies the plane straight into the mouth right before he's about to let off the heat beam. And you're just like, everyone, I mean, myself, all the people in the movie, they're all like, holy he's going to die, right? He goes into he plunges into the throat of Godzilla, and he ejects before it explodes, and it kills Godzilla. Like, well, I'll get to that, but it blows Godzilla into little tiny pieces, and you see him parachuting in the sky, and everyone's saluting him. And it's one of those moments where you're like, you did what you had to do. You fulfilled your duty. Like, you did not need to die. And then it goes back to a cutscene where it's like, where the hell did the parachute come from? Where'd the ejector seat come from? Tachibana, the mechanic that blamed him for everything on the island, he said, live. I want you to live. And created the ejector seat for him in a cutscene like 30 minutes before this part of the movie, probably about 20 minutes before this part of the movie. And I was like, dude, oh. But Tachibana told him to let go of his guilt and live, especially for Akiko, right? There's a messenger that comes up to the neighbor. I can't remember the neighbor's name, but she was right there next to him where she lived, and she took care of Akiko while he was at work, and while the mom was at work, Noriko, while they were at work. She gets a telegram, and nobody knows what this telegram is until this part of the movie, right? He gets off, of the boat, and Akiko and the neighbor come up, and they're like, "Hey, dummy!" And she starts punching him. Right? It's like Baka. It starts hitting him in the chest, and she hands him Akiko back, the kid, and gives him the telegram. Next scene, we're in the hospital. Noriko's alive, bro. She's alive. She survived. She has, a black bruise on her neck and a good chunk of her head. Kind of, they got her head bandaged, so you can't really tell how much damage is done. But then it cuts over after they reunite and everything, and she's like, "Are you done with the war that you're fighting?" Which is the war that I was telling you about earlier on in this segment. And yes, he says he is. So I think he's ready to settle down, have a life with with Akiko and Noriko, which is amazing. I'm super happy for his journey, right? And then it cuts back to Godzilla, whose flesh begins to regenerate while it's sinking into the bottom of the ocean, making room for a -2 or a new Godzilla. Dude, such a good movie. It was such a good movie. So many good actors and actresses. Just overall, a fantastic movie. I'm telling you, if I just spoiled everything for you and you haven't seen it, this movie didn't pay attention to Godzilla almost at all. The Godzilla was in the movie like 3 times, and it was for like probably about 10 minutes a pop, maybe 15. But that was it. The rest of the movie you spend following this guy battling his demons and this life that he wants to have, but he feels like he can't have it because he let everybody down by not being a kamikaze pilot and not saving anyone on that island. And it's just like his guilt. It's just you're following this man and his journey rather than Godzilla and his journey. It was just so good. So if I spoiled it all for you, I'm sorry. I really wish that you would watch the movie before you listen to this review, because I do indicate that there's going to be spoilers. I don't lie to you guys. But this movie was fantastic. Overall, 9.25. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Hey, let me know what you guys think. What should I watch next? I've got a few here on my list that I plan on watching. But if you guys have any ideas, make sure you comment. Let me know. Hey, you guys have a wonderful day, all right?